Most people walk through life as if death politely sends out, "Save the dates." It doesn't. Death is not a gentleman. It doesn't knock, it kicks the door in. One day you're sipping coffee, scrolling through your phone, half listening to the news, and the next, gone. No grand speech, no movie soundtrack, just silence. Take Mark, for instance. He was 62, healthy, and still doing push-ups every morning. He missed his grandson's birthday because of a strange fatigue. 2 weeks later, he was gone. A hidden cancer. No warning, just vanished. The truth is, your body often sends out distress signals before it shuts down, but most people are too busy, too distracted, or too afraid to notice. These aren't spooky, supernatural omens. They're cold, clinical, biological facts. Signs that your time might be running out. Signs that doctors often recognize but rarely explain until it's too late. In this video, we're going to decode the 5 clearest signs that death may be near, not to scare you, but to prepare you. Because once it comes, there are no do-overs. So if you want clarity instead of chaos when the final moment arrives, stay with me. And if you're new here, subscribe now. Trust me, your future self or spirit might just thank you. Sign 1. Significant changes in sleep patterns. The first major sign that death may be drawing near isn't something loud or dramatic. It begins quietly, almost respectfully, like a whisper that only your body can hear. It shows up in your sleep, or, more accurately, in the slow, strange disappearance of it. This isn't the kind of restless night that comes from too much caffeine or a noisy neighbor, but something far deeper. You might find yourself either sleeping for 14 hours straight and still waking up exhausted, or worse, unable to sleep at all despite feeling utterly drained. What's truly haunting is how often this change is dismissed, brushed off as stress, old age, or a bad mattress. But sometimes it's your body's way of saying we're nearing the end of the road, not in panic or pain, but in quiet preparation. I remember hearing about a man named Harold, a 78-year-old retired Navy officer and widower for over a decade. He had always been disciplined, up at 6 and breakfast by 7, and out for a walk by 8 and like clockwork. Until one autumn, something shifted. He began napping during the day, sleeping through family visits, and missing church for the first time in years. Then, as if some internal wire had snapped, it reversed. He started staying up all night, pacing his small house, sitting on his porch, and staring into the dark sky. His daughter thought it was insomnia and brought him tea and melatonin, but nothing worked. He once told her, "It's like my soul is trying to stretch its legs before it leaves." 3 months later, he passed peacefully in his sleep. No illness, no warnings, just a quiet departure. This kind of profound change in sleep is more than a quirk of aging. It's often a biological shift seen in people nearing the final stage of life. In medical terms, doctors describe it as the body conserving energy for essential systems. Your brain knows the power is running low, so it starts shutting down non-essential functions like appetite, digestion, and even emotional regulation, focusing solely on keeping the heart beating and the lungs breathing. This shutdown alters the balance of chemicals regulating sleep. The circadian rhythm, your body's internal clock, begins to break. You might find yourself awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. And when the sun rises, you drift into sleep like a leaf falling into a still pond. What makes this even harder is that many people don't notice it in themselves. It's often family members who sense that something has changed. A loved one might say, "Mom's been sleeping all day lately," or "Dad hasn't been to his bowling group in weeks. He just says he's tired." Because it creeps in so slowly, it feels like just another part of getting old until you look back and realize how much has shifted. From a Stoic point of view, this isn't a sign meant to frighten us. It's an invitation. An invitation to wake up, ironically, to what still matters. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." These disruptions in sleep aren't merely signals of bodily decline. They're spiritual cues asking whether you've made peace with the life you've lived, said what needed to be said, or resolved regrets that have no business following you to the end. For the elderly, especially, this can stir a quiet panic. A fear not of death, but of dying unheard, of fading into the background while the world moves on, remembered only in fragments, if at all. If you feel that weight, know you're not alone. That feeling is deeply human, and the best remedy isn't denial, it's clarity. Recognize these changes not as omens of doom, but as reminders to forgive, to speak, to reconcile, and to live more honestly in whatever time remains. So if you or someone you love is experiencing these deep, persistent changes in sleep, don't ignore them. Don't just reach for sleep aids, reach for understanding. Because while no one can outrun death, we can prepare for it, not in fear, but with quiet dignity. And that, the Stoics would say, is how you die well, by learning how to sleep in peace long before the final night arrives. Sign 2. Sudden and persistent weight loss. The second major sign that death may be approaching is often mistaken for something positive. Sudden, effortless weight loss. In a culture obsessed with thinness and transformation, this kind of weight loss can initially be celebrated. Compliments are given with comments like, "You look great," or "What's your secret?" coming easily, especially when the change seems to require no effort at all. But when this happens in the later stages of life, especially when paired with a persistent loss of appetite, it's often not a sign of health returning, it's a warning. A silent alarm that the body has begun a process it cannot reverse. The medical term for this is cachexia, and it is fundamentally different from weight loss due to dieting or exercise. This isn't about burning fat, it's about muscle wasting, organ function declining, and the body slowly shutting down non-essential systems to conserve energy for only the most vital functions. What happens inside the body during this stage is complex but brutally efficient. The digestive system, one of the body's most energy-consuming systems, is deprioritized. The body, knowing it has limited energy left, begins rerouting resources away from digestion and toward the brain, heart, and lungs. Metabolism slows at a cellular level. Taste buds dull or shift entirely. Foods that once brought joy may taste off, metallic, bitter, or simply bland. Even water can begin to taste unpleasant. Nothing feels appetizing, and the very act of eating starts to feel burdensome. The result is a consistent involuntary decline in weight that no amount of favorite meals or encouragement can reverse. Unlike a temporary illness like the flu, this isn't a momentary dip. It is progressive, it does not improve, and most cruelly, it is often misunderstood. Families frequently mistake brief windows of regained appetite for recovery. A dying person may suddenly crave something small, ice cream, soup, a piece of fruit, and loved ones rejoice, believing it's a sign of strength returning. But these moments are often just fluctuations, part of a larger downward slope. The appetite returns not because the body is healing, but due to shifts in brain chemistry that sometimes occur near the end. Hope flickers, but the decline continues. For the elderly, this kind of weight loss strikes at more than just the body. It touches identity, memory, and dignity. Food is culture. It's connection. It's one of the few things people can share, even when words fail. When the desire to eat disappears, so does part of what makes a person feel alive. Along with it comes a deeper fear, the sense that no one truly understands what they're going through, that no one realizes they're not just losing weight. They're losing control, familiarity, and presence in their own life. It feeds into the terror of being forgotten, of fading, of becoming invisible while still breathing. From a Stoic perspective, these moments of fading physical strength are not humiliations. They are reminders. Life, as Epictetus taught, is not entirely ours to command. We are given what we are given, and our task is to respond with acceptance, not resistance. The Stoics never taught denial of death. They taught preparation for it, to see these signs not as punishments or failures, but as natural steps in a process we all must walk through. The disappearance of appetite is not just a symptom, it is a question. Have you let go of what no longer serves you? Have you found peace with the body that once carried you but now prepares to set you free? Understanding this kind of weight loss for what it truly is allows us to respond not with panic, but with presence and quiet care. It is a chance to comfort, to sit beside someone without trying to fix them, to bear witness to their last chapter with grace. And if it is you experiencing these changes, it is your call to reflect, not with fear but with courage, on whether you have made peace not just with others, but within yourself. If you know someone who's struggling with this, send them this message. It might change their life. Sign 3. Psychological withdrawal and mental detachment. The third sign that death may be approaching is not something you can measure with a thermometer or detect in a lab test. It is more elusive, more psychological, and often more painful for those watching than for the person experiencing it. This sign is a deep and sudden mental transformation, a shift in awareness, values, and emotional attachment. It's not caused by grief or mental illness. It's not simply dementia or confusion. It is nature's quiet way of loosening the ties that bind us to this world. As the body prepares for its final descent, the mind follows, and it does so in a way that most people don't understand, often leading to hurt, frustration, or even conflict. You might notice a person who once fretted over every detail suddenly becoming indifferent to things that used to matter dearly. Bills go unpaid. Long-held grudges are dropped without fanfare. Conversations about the future are met with silence or vague smiles. The world seems to grow smaller for them, less urgent, less noisy, less worth holding on to. While outsiders may view this as giving up, it is in truth a deeply rooted biological and psychological retreat inward. What's actually happening is that the brain is subtly yet profoundly rewiring itself. Neurological studies have shown that in many people nearing the end of life, there is a notable decrease in the activity of brain regions responsible for anxiety, fear, and stress. Social concerns fade. Daily irritations lose their sting. Even regrets seem to dissolve into the background. It's as if the mind itself begins to silence the noise of the world to make room for a different kind of awareness, something quieter, more timeless. This can be deeply unsettling for family and friends. They often interpret the behavior as apathy, depression, or emotional withdrawal, but in many cases it is none of these things. It is the mind's last act of mercy, a natural detachment that eases the transition between life and death. This is why someone who was once stubbornly rational or even agnostic may suddenly begin speaking in spiritual terms. They may recall memories from decades ago with vivid clarity. They may say things that sound cryptic or poetic. They may even appear to be speaking to those who have already passed, as if the boundary between the living and the dead has become less solid. Some even experience a phenomenon known as terminal lucidity. a strange, temporary return to full mental clarity after weeks or months of confusion. It seems miraculous. Families rejoice, only to be devastated days later when the person slips away. From the outside, it looks like a recovery. In reality, it is often the final moment of presence, a last goodbye wrapped in brief lucidity. The Stoics taught us to prepare for death, not to fear it. They urged us to train our minds not just for the trials of life, but for the silence that follows it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that we should live each day as if it were our last, not in panic, but in peace. What the mind does in these final months reflects this wisdom. It simplifies, it prioritizes, it lets go. The detachment that occurs is not weakness, it is wisdom, hardwired into the deepest layers of our being. For the elderly, this shift can be frightening, not because they feel confused, but because they feel unseen. Their silence is misunderstood, their stillness is questioned, and beneath it all lies the ancient human fear that their exit will go unnoticed, that they will fade, not just from life but from memory, that those they loved will not truly understand that the distance they're creating isn't rejection, it's preparation. If you are witnessing this change in someone you love, don't fight it. Don't push them back into the noise. Sit beside them in the quiet. Accept that what you are seeing is not a breakdown but a breaking free. And if it is happening within you, know that this path is not a lonely one. Others have walked it before you with grace. Your detachment is not a sign of abandonment, but a sacred moment of turning inward. You are not disappearing. You are returning. If you know someone who's struggling with this, send them this message. It might change their life. Sign 4. Circulatory and breathing changes. Here's something most people never realize until it's too late. In the final stretch of life, your body becomes ruthlessly efficient. It starts making executive decisions, deciding where energy goes and where it doesn't. When that happens, the evidence isn't hidden in medical reports, it appears right there in the mirror. You begin to see it in your skin, your hands, and your breath. These changes aren't subtle, they're signs, so clear, so unmistakable, they can shake even the most stoic observer. Take the case of Epictetus, a retired librarian from Vermont. She had always been composed, graceful, and dignified, the kind of woman who still ironed her blouses and wore lipstick to the grocery store. But in the final weeks of her life, everything about her physical presence began to change. Her hands, once warm and quick, turned cold and slightly bluish. Her legs developed strange web-like patterns under the skin, purplish and marbled, like the veins of an old leaf. One night, her daughter noticed that Epictetus' breathing wasn't steady. She would breathe in deeply, then shallowly, then nothing. Silence. 10 seconds. 15. Just as panic began to rise, another breath. This wasn't sleep apnea or a passing irregularity. It was something ancient, something final. What Epictetus was experiencing is well known in end-of-life medicine. It begins with the circulatory system. Your body, recognizing that resources are limited, stops trying to do everything. It starts conserving. Blood is redirected away from the extremities, hands, feet, fingers, toes, and sent to the core to keep your brain, heart, and lungs alive just a little longer. The skin changes color, often to a bluish purple or pale white. This is called mottling. It starts in the extremities and creeps up slowly. Hands and feet may grow not just cool, but cold to the touch. The skin may become waxy and the nail beds pale or almost translucent. Even if you never gave your fingernails a second thought in life, they become powerful signals near the end. Then there's the breathing, perhaps the most jarring change of all. Known as Cheney-Stokes respiration, it's a pattern where breaths deepen, then slow, then stop before starting again. It can be terrifying to witness. It can feel like losing someone over and over in the same hour. But to the trained eye, it's not a malfunction. It's a system winding down. The brain's respiratory center is losing its tight control, and the rhythms we took for granted begin unraveling. From the outside, these physical changes can seem disturbing, even cruel. But in truth, they are acts of mercy. The body is protecting itself, shielding consciousness from pain, and redirecting its last efforts to keep the light on just a little longer. It's not chaotic. It's incredibly wise. The Stoics, who spent their lives preparing for death, would have seen this as nature's final lesson in priority. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe how transient and trivial is all mortal life. Yesterday a drop of semen, tomorrow a handful of ashes or bones. And yet within that fleeting journey, there is profound beauty, even in its ending." For many older people, these physical transformations can feel humiliating. Their bodies, which once symbolized independence and dignity, now seem to betray them. But it's not betrayal, it's biology. Understanding this helps replace fear with reverence. The real tragedy isn't in what's happening, it's in how often we misinterpret it. We push, we beg, we hope for reversals. But the body is telling the truth. It's saying it's time. And if we listen, if we honor what it's showing us, we can respond not with panic, but with presence. So if you or someone you love has noticed these unmistakable changes, cold hands, marbled skin, pale nails, or uneven breathing, it may be the body's final signal that the journey is nearly over. But don't look away, don't fear it. This too is part of the design. And there is one final sign ahead, perhaps the most important of them all. But before we get there, take a moment to reflect. Understanding these signs isn't just about death, it's about honoring life in its rawest, most honest form. If you know someone who's struggling with this, send them this message. It might change their life. Sign 5. The body's final communications. Did you know that hearing is the last sense to fade before we die? Even when the eyes no longer open, when the hands no longer grasp, the ears, those quiet listeners, still catch whispers, still hold on to final words like they matter most. And maybe they do, because the fifth and final sign that death is drawing near isn't something you can measure or diagnose. It's something you feel, an atmosphere, a change in the air. It's the body's last language, quiet, strange, sacred. Most people miss it, not because it's hidden, but because it's too intimate, too delicate to label. You may notice a smell, sharp, metallic, almost chemical, not decay but transformation. It happens when the liver and kidneys, having done their work faithfully for decades, begin to step aside. They stop filtering, and the body speaks through scent. Then come the sounds. The breath, once steady and smooth, begins to rattle like an old house in the wind. Known clinically as the death rattle, it can be frightening for family members. But for the person dying, it's painless. The body no longer wastes effort clearing the throat. It's not fighting anymore. It's falling into stillness. Hands might reach into the air. Fingers may pull at bed sheets. These gestures, often dismissed as random, are far from meaningless. They are echoes of the brain's shifting chemistry, of oxygen dipping just below what it once was. But some believe they are more, that those hands are reaching towards something only the dying can see. What's remarkable is how coordinated it all is. Systems shut down in sequence, like stage lights dimming one by one. Digestion fades first, then kidney function. The heart and lungs remain loyal to the end. But even as the body dims, the mind flickers with strange persistence. And here lies the most haunting beauty of all. Hearing often endures. That's why we speak gently, even when no words come back. That's why we lean close and say what was always hardest to say, because it might be the last moment they truly receive it. There is also timing. Unspoken, eerie timing. Some people wait until a loved one arrives before letting go. Others hold on through birthdays, anniversaries, or holidays, like the body is following its own unspoken calendar. It's not science, it's not coincidence. It's something older than both, a mysterious alignment between body, mind, and spirit. To witness this is not horror. It is privilege. This isn't the collapse of life. It is its completion. The Stoics taught us that to die is not to be broken. It is to return. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that he was mortal, not to live in fear, but to live with clarity. So when these final signs appear, when the room changes, when time slows, when silence suddenly feels like speech, you are not witnessing loss. You are standing at the threshold. And there, the greatest act of love is simply to stay, to be still, to let them hear you and to let go. Here's the truth. Whether you're ready to hear it or not, none of us are getting out of this alive. You can drink your green smoothies, avoid gluten, and do 10,000 steps a day, but death still has your number. And the worst part, it rarely calls ahead. Just ask Tom, a perfectly healthy 66-year-old who went in for a routine checkup, joked with the nurse, made dinner plans, and was found collapsed in the garage 20 minutes later. Heart failure, no warning, no goodbye. His family kept replaying every sign they might have missed. But that's the thing. Most people don't know what to look for. That's why we made this video. Not to scare you, but to wake you up. Because when you finally understand these 5 signs, death becomes less of a monster and more of a mirror. It forces you to ask, have I said what matters? Am I carrying regrets I can still lay down? If this stirred something in you, don't walk away unchanged. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we're not just talking about dying. We're here to help you live with your eyes open and your soul ready. And trust me, you'll want to be ready.